All right, what's up, Doggy Style League members? Um, one of the commissioners for one of my other leagues does a weekly preview of all the matchups every week. Um, so it's a lot of fun. So at least as long as I am unemployed, I think I'm going to do the same. Anyway, jumping right into the matchups. Um, First one up is myself versus Paul Anderson. Um, let's see. All right, quarterbacks. I've got Tom Brady going against Jacksonville, and Paul's got Peyton Manning going up against Detroit. You got to go Tom Brady here. He's the number one quarterback in the league. Looked incredible so far, averaging 32 points a season or a game. Um, Peyton has looked really old. Got that noodle arm. Can't really force it out wide. To Demaryius Thomas, his best weapon, who's usually kind of split out wide there. Definitely going Brady. Running backs, I've got Le'Veon Bell and Latavius Murray. Paul's got LaShawn McCoy and C.J. Spiller. I like both of my running backs better than both of his running backs. I think Le'Veon Bell scores the most points of any running back this year from here on out. And I think Latavius Murray is playing in underrated an underrated offense and going up against Cleveland, who's bad as usual. Um, LaShawn McCoy's questionable. He's got a little hammy strain. Didn't practice yesterday, but he's been playing through it. I expect him to play. I just don't expect him to be very explosive. C.J. Spiller, got no faith in him. I've had him a couple years in the past in different leagues, and he's just been disappointing every year. Especially if Drew Brees doesn't play, definitely going my running backs. Devontae or wide receivers, I've got Devontae Adams and Dante Moncrief. Paul's got Larry Fitzgerald and Travis Benjamin. Um, this is kind of close. I realize that Larry Fitz and Travis Benjamin are the number 4 and 3 wide receivers right now in the league, but I expect Travis Benjamin to come back to earth fast. I mean, what he's doing is just unsustainable, and he's mostly been doing it with Manziel, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Manziel or uh, McCown's going to play this weekend. Devonte Adams kind of banged up, kind of been a little bit of a disappointment for me actually. I thought he was going to have a bigger role in that Green Bay offense, but I'm really patting myself on the back for the Dante Moncrief pickup. I think he's really good. I think he's going to see the lion's share of targets in what should be a pretty high volume passing offense for Indy. And I kind of see this game kind of being a shootout. I think both Tennessee's defense and Indianapolis's defense are bad. So as long as T.Y. Hilton's on the kind of banged up, I've got him on my bench. I like Moncrief to score early and often. Kind of a toss up. It's kind of a cop out, I know, but I think wide receivers is a cop out or a toss up. Tight ends, I'm throwing out Eric Abron, who has scored touchdowns in the first 2 games of the season, going up against Rob Gronkowski for Paul. Easy. Rob Gronkowski scored 4 touchdowns so far. Yeah, so that's not good at all. Yeah, Gronkowski all day. At least 1 touchdown, as usual. Um, at flex, another good pickup for myself, I think. Dion Lewis, kind of not really on anybody's radar, going up against Jacksonville. For me, Paul's got Torrey Smith. I like Dion Lewis just because of the consistency I think he's going to bring. even though it is New England's backfield, which is notoriously uh, unpredictable. Torrey Smith is kind of a long touchdown, you know, he's a boom or bust. He's either going to catch a long touchdown and have a lot of points or just catch nothing and have few points. So I like Dion Lewis there. Defense, I've got the Broncos going up against hurt Matt Stafford in Detroit. Paul's got the Steelers D going against St. Louis. I like the Broncos. Stafford's hurt, and the Broncos have been ferocious getting after the quarterback. They've got DeMarcus Ware, Von Miller, a great pass rush. They're the number one scoring defense so far in the league. This is not your dad's Steelers defense. They've been pretty porous. They're actually 27 out of 32 teams right now, and St. Louis isn't exactly an offensive juggernaut, but I think they're getting Gurley healthy, and Nick Foles has been surprisingly good so far, so I'm going to give the edge to myself. Kickers, kind of random. I'm not going to even attempt to handicap that, but I like the line. I'm projected to win by 6 or so, and I like that to happen. Maybe even more, since I just don't think Peyton's going to meet his projection of 21 points. So I expect myself to go to 2-1. And let's move on to the next matchup. Got Chubbin Sundays for Neil Fleck going against Black Dog's Rule for Ben Towns. It's projected to be our closest matchup of the week. Neil's favored to win by a whopping 0.4 points this week. Quarterback, Neil is by far Neil's worst position. Colin Kaepernick going against a tough Arizona defense in Glendale. Not going to be fun. Mr. Ben's got Russell Wilson going against a crappy Chicago defense. I just don't know how much Russell's going to be passing. I expect them to get up big early, maybe even a touchdown on defense. Definitely going to get his on the ground. Don't know how much he's going to pass, and this is a pass-heavy league, so. But I'm still picking Russell Wilson. Running backs. Neil's got Joseph Randle going up against Atlanta, and Chris Ivory, who's questionable, going up against Philly. Mr. Ben's got Marshawn, who's also questionable, going up against Chicago, and LeGarrette Blount. I guess I like Marshawn the best out of the four, but assuming Chris Ivory plays, and I think he will, I like Joseph Randle and Chris Ivory better than LeGarrette Blount. Like I said, New England's backfield is unpredictable, and LeGarrette Blount had 0 points last week. Dion Lewis played for like 75 out of 80 snaps or something ridiculous. But I expect Marshawn to feast on that Chicago defense. So I'll probably pick Ben's running backs, actually. Wide receivers, Neil's got OBJ, Odell Beckham, going tonight against Washington, Thursday night against Washington, and a questionable Julio Jones. Mr. Ben's got Brandon Cooks and Brandon Marshall. Brandon Cooks also questionable. I want to keep an eye on that. You got to go Neil's wide receivers. This is best position group. Very solid. 2 of the top 5 wide receivers drafted. Julio's had some injury problems the last few years. That's really been the only knock on him, but I expect him to play. And at some point, Dallas has to give up some points. Their secondary is just depleted. Brandon Cooks, I expect him to find pay dirt at some point too. Brandon Marshall has been very surprising. I really like him. He's the 6th best running or wide receiver in the league so far, averaging 17 points. especially if Eric Decker doesn't play. Expect him to get a lot of looks and at least one touchdown. So edge to Neal, but closer than I thought it was going to be. Um, Tight ends, Neal's got Jared Cook, and Mr. Ben's got Ladarius Green. Kind of weird. Um, I don't know. Jared Cook, he's competing with Lance Kendricks, and although he's really athletic, he seems to be kind of allergic to the end zone. Um, I mean, he's very athletic, but Mr. Ben might want to look out. Ladarius Green got his second concussion of the year last week, and might want to check and see if he passes the concussion protocol. I mean, otherwise, if he plays, he's a good play because Antonio Gates is out this week and next. So just keep an eye out on that. Flex, Neal's got Matt Jones going tonight against the Giants' porous rush defense. Mr. Ben's got John Brown, athletic Arizona wide receiver, going against San Francisco. That's tough. Matt Jones was, you bastard, Neal. I wanted him so bad. Probably the top waiver wire pickup of the week. Looked incredible last week. Got, I think, 3 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns and 123 yards on 19 carries. That's solid. But I'm going to go with John Brown just because Matt Jones has to do it again. Show me that that's not a fluke. Might change later on in the season, but he's got to show me that he can do it again. Defense, Neal's got Dolphins going against Buffalo. Mr. Ben's got Ravens, who just got torched by the mighty Oakland Raiders, who are, again, underrated, going against Cincinnati. Both of these are kind of disappointing last week. That news about Sue kind of freelancing on defense is not good news for the Dolphins. And Buffalo has been resurgent. I'm probably going to go the Ravens. I think Dalton has to throw picks and or drop some balls this week, and I think the Ravens are just more talented and kind of more cohesive right now. Kickers don't care about. This matchup is tough. Assuming if everybody's healthy, I'm picking Neal to win by a hair. It just kind of depends on whether these questionable players are playing or not. But yeah, expect Neal to get on the board this week. All right. Next matchup, we've got Beer Man, David Printz going against Team Freeman. This is Matt Freeman. Quarterback, we've got Ryan Fitzpatrick for David going against Drew Brees if he plays. For Matt, I don't know what to think. Matt, you need to make sure that Drew Brees is playing. Got that bruised rotator cuff. If they were both healthy, I mean, Drew Brees all day over Ryan Fitzpatrick, but Fitzpatrick hasn't looked bad this year so far, averaging 16 points a game. Not bad. Running backs, David's got Jonathan Stewart and Rashad Jennings. Matt's got Matt Forte and Darren Sproles. I like David's running backs here. Got 2 solid number 1 options. Matt Forte's questionable and going against Seattle, who just got hard-hitting safety Cam Chancellor back. And then you just never know with Darren Sproles. His usage is kind of up and down. Yeah, I'm going to go David's running backs by a hair. Wide receivers, David's got Antonio Brown and Calvin Johnson. Matt's got Julian Edelman and Jarvis Landry. Closer than you might think given the names that you're seeing here, but still got to go the proven commodities. Antonio Brown's been the best wide receiver in football for a while. Calvin Johnson aging a little bit, but always a threat to score and definitely gets a lot of looks. And he seems to be healthy. Julian Edelman and Jarvis Landry, especially in a league where you get bonus points for receptions. It's 2 points for every 5 receptions. Julian Edelman and Jarvis Landry are target hogs. They're both looking really good. So closer than expected. And actually, Matt's wide receivers are. Let's see. They're they're a lot closer than I thought. Tight ends. David's got Jordan Reed going tonight against the Giants, and Matt's got Zach Ertz. Jordan Reed all day. Kirk Cousins has had a really good relationship with Jordan Reed. He's the number 6 tight end so far, averaging 12 points a game. Don't expect that to change. Zach Ertz seems to be a continual disappointment, averaging 2.5. I expect Jordan Reed to have a big game, if anybody does, in a Thursday night game. Flex, David's got Pierre Garcon going all in on the Washington offense here. Matt's got Isaiah Crowell. I like Matt's play here. I try never to play Thursday night guys if I can, unless they're my, obvious number one. Just that short week is just brutal for offensive players. I like Crowell, especially against the Oakland defense, who I don't think can stop much. Defenses, we got the Patriots for David, and going against Jacksonville, and Matt has the Texans going against Tampa Bay. Both going up against bad but getting better offenses. I like the Texans here. I think famous Jameis puts the ball on the turf or in the hands of a defender at least twice. Texans have J.J. Watt. The Patriots lost a lot on defense last year. No Brandon Browner, no Darrelle Revis. And Jacksonville does look a lot better than they did last year. Blake Bortles has settled down. Allen Robinson is legit wide receiver threat. T.J. Yeldon has looked pretty good on the ground too. So going Texans here. Kickers don't care. Overall, I like David to win this, but I think it's going to be closer than the line of 14. Yeah, I'm picking David. All right. Next matchup, we've got Steve Carter versus Darlene Printz. Steve is 2-0. I expect that streak to continue this week. I think he'll be 3-0 after this week. Quarterbacks, we got Aaron Rodgers for Steve going against Matt Ryan. And even though Matt Ryan has shown good rapport with Julio Jones, obviously, Julio might be a little banged up, number one, and Matt Ryan seems to like throwing picks, just like he always has. Aaron Rodgers, consistently the best. He's the number 4 quarterback right now. I expect that to rise, especially if Lacey plays and if Randall Cobb and Devontae Adams get a little more healthy. Going Rodgers here. Running backs, we've got Steve's got Devontae Freeman and Dexter McCluster. Darlene's got the 2 Philly running backs that aren't Darren Sproles. Got a questionable DeMarco Murray and Ryan Matthews. Darlene might want to keep an eye out on whether DeMarco Murray plays. He has looked fairly bad this year so far, at least on the ground. He's scoring touchdowns, but seems to be going backwards a lot. If I'm Darlene, I definitely keep an eye on DeMarco Murray. Think about Fred Jackson. I think he'll have some garbage time carries. I think Seattle will be up on Chicago big, and I think they'll want to take out Lynch and keep him healthy. So if DeMarco Murray doesn't play, either try and find somebody on the waiver wire. I don't know what's there, but I think Fred Jackson could be a sneaky play. Devontae Freeman is kind of being pressed into duty as the number 1 running back after the rib injuries to Tevin Coleman. I don't know how healthy he is either, though. And Dexter McCluster, that's kind of a Hail Mary. You just never know what he's going to do. I mean, most of the time he's 1 or 2 points, but could explode for a big game. Ryan Matthews, especially if DeMarco Murray doesn't play, expect him to have a bigger game. And I expect Philly's line to gel a little better, get some blocking for their running backs. So overall, if DeMarco Murray plays, I like Dardar's running backs better. Wide receivers, Steve's got Anquan Bolden going against Arizona and Michael Crabtree for Oakland. Darlene's got Demaryius Thomas and Eric Decker. Decker's another one you might want to look out and see if he's playing. Got a knee sprain, so he may be limited even if he does play, but he's looked good so far this season. Anquan Bolden, really the only wide receiving option besides Torrey Smith. Definitely going to get a lot more targets than Smith. He's the possession guy. He's another one of those guys that just doesn't ever seem to age. Demaryius Thomas, he got his last week, mostly on the last drive. But I just worry about Peyton being able to force it out there. He's got no zip on the ball right now. Michael Crabtree is kind of a surprising guy. Had a ridiculous 16 targets last week. I think he caught 11 of them maybe. Eric Decker, again, if he plays, could do well against Philly. That's tough. If Decker plays, I like Darlene's better. If he doesn't, I like Steve's better. Tight end, Greg Olsen for Steve or Jimmy Graham for Darlene. If Jimmy Graham was still on New Orleans, this wouldn't be a question, but I'm actually going to go Greg Olsen here, going against Graham's old team. Unfortunately, as a Saints fan, New Orleans has looked like garbage this year on defense. And Jimmy Graham just hasn't had the usage one would expect. I think last week he had 1 catch for 11 yards. That's terrible. Terrible game planning by Seattle. One of the reasons they're 0-2. I mean, Jimmy Graham just doesn't block, and he's a pass-catching tight end, but whatever. DeAndre Hopkins, questionable. Had a concussion. I want to see that he passes concussion protocol. That's Steve's flex. Darlene's got Marcus Colston, who I think is really starting to show the age. I think he's starting to give up some snaps to Brandon Coleman is kind of the big possession kind of guy in the Drew Brees, Sean Payton offense. Defense, Steve's got the Cardinals going at home against San Francisco. Darlene's got the Rams going against Pittsburgh. Got to go Cardinals here. San Francisco looked pitiful last week away from home. I'm starting the Cardinals in another league and expecting them to do well. The Rams are supposed to be a good defense, but they are going against either the first or second best offense in the league in Pittsburgh. So I expect the Cardinals to do better. Kickers, don't care. Expect Steve to go to 3-0 this week. All right, next matchup is Steve Freeman, Big Green Machine, versus Joe Printz, Barry Jive, and the Uptown Five. Quarterback, Andrew Luck for Steve, Matthew Stafford for Joe. You got to think Andrew Luck turns it around. He's just too talented not to. Got too many weapons. What I think is going to be kind of a shootout game. So yeah, go Luck, especially since Stafford is injured. I mean, he's going to play, but his ribs, that really affects a quarterback. Running backs, Steve's got Lamar Miller and Gio Bernard. Joe's got Jamal Charles and Alfred Morris. A little closer if Lamar Miller plays. He's questionable right now. Didn't practice yesterday. I think Jamal Charles is going to have a big week going against Green Bay. And although Gio Bernard is an interesting play, he's starting to get some more carry. He's healthy. He's starting to get some more carries from Jeremy Hill, who put it on the turf twice last week, and I think got negative points maybe. Alfred Morris, he's another one that's starting to seed some carries. We'll see. Kind of like I talked with Neil's matchup. Matt Jones is starting to eat into his carries a little bit. We'll just have to see how that turns out. Overall, like I said, closer if Lamar Miller plays, but I like Joe's running backs better. Um, Wide receivers, Steve's got Emmanuel Sanders and Jermaine Kearse. Joe's got A.J. Green and Keenan Allen. A.J. Green is questionable with some kind of knee injury, but it doesn't seem to be hampering him. At least that's what it says. So I like him, but I also do like Emmanuel Sanders. I don't think Detroit's secondary is that good. And Emmanuel Sanders is the slot guy. Seems to be the only guy that Peyton can really get it to on a consistent basis. I like Keenan Allen better than Jermaine Kearse. Kearse is kind of a prayer. Seattle doesn't throw much, and even when they do, they kind of spread it around pretty well. And I expect them to be up for the entire game. So I like Keenan Allen there. Tight ends, Jason Witten for Steve and Crockett Gilmore for Joe. Jason Witten is questionable, but he hasn't ever missed a game in his career, which has been going on for a long, long time. Gilmore exploded last week for 2 touchdowns and 20-something points. But if he plays, I like Witten better. He's proven. Gilmore's just going to have to show me that that wasn't a fluke. So I like Witten there if he plays. Steve's got Vernon Davis in his flex, San Francisco tight end. Joe's got Doug Baldwin, again, another Seattle wide receiver, and I just don't trust any of those people. I like Davis here. I think Kaepernick has to look for him. Davis looks healthy this year. I just trust him more than Doug Baldwin. Defense, Steve's got Seattle going against terrible Chicago defense or offense, and Joe's got the Browns going against Oakland, who is underrated for sure. I like the Seahawks to score at least 1 touchdown and keep them under 15 points, so definitely going Seahawks big there. Kickers don't care, although might be time for Steve to look elsewhere from Adam Vinatieri, who has missed both of his field goal opportunities this year, is averaging in the negative points. All right. So overall, I expect Joe to go to 3-0 in that matchup. All right, our penultimate matchup is Jake Freeman versus Daniel Carter. Also projected to be close. Jake is favored by 4.3, but I'm actually picking Daniel here. Quarterbacks, Jake's got Ben Roethlisberger going against St. Louis, and Daniel's got Tyrod Taylor for Buffalo. I like Roethlisberger, obviously. He's really shown a lot this year. I think they've got a high-powered offense, although Tyrod Taylor has shown out pretty well too, running and spreading the ball out pretty well. I think Rex Ryan has had a good influence on the Buffalo team this year. But yeah, edge to Roethlisberger. Jake's got AP, Adrian Peterson, and Duke Johnson for his running backs. Daniel's got Jeremy Hill and Amir Abdullah. Obviously, got to like all day the best out of these 4, but I think I like Hill and Abdullah better than Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson, not the number 1 running back in a bad offense. Just better hope he gets a touchdown. Hill is starting to lose some carries to Bernard, but I think it'll be kind of matchup dependent, and he kind of is the smash mouth guy. That's kind of a toss-up. I think I'm actually going to favor Daniel Carter here because depending on what Abdullah does. Um, Wide receivers, Jake's got Golden Tate and Reuben Randall. Daniel's got Jordan Matthews and Rashard Matthews. Jordan from Philadelphia, Rashard, a popular waiver wire pickup from Miami, averaging 12 points a game. I like Daniel's wide receivers better. Jordan Matthews, proven number one in what should be a bounce back week for Philadelphia. I expected them to have a better offense so far than they have, and I expect them to get it together a little more as the chemistry gets better later in the year. Golden Tate, interesting play. I picked him up in a couple of my other leagues. Definitely shown to be a capable wide receiver when Calvin Johnson goes down, as he usually does at some point during the year, and is still getting a lot of targets even when he doesn't, or even when Johnson is in. But Reuben Randall, don't trust him at all. Averaging 1 point, I just don't know. Tight ends, Jake's got Martellus Bennett. Daniel's got Travis Kelce. I like Kelce here. Bennett's going to have Jimmy Clausen throwing him the ball. And Kelce has averaged 15.5 points. So I'm going Kelce here. At the flex, Jake's got Sammy Watkins, talented wide receiver from Buffalo. Daniel's got Tyler Eifert, number 2 tight end. So Daniel's got the number 2 and 3 tight ends so far. And I think those two are sustainable, at least top 10 tight ends by the end of the year, maybe even top 5. I like Eifert here. I think he's more a focus of the offense than Watkins is. They just seem to be spreading the ball around in Buffalo a lot this year. So, Daniel, make me an offer on one of those tight ends. Defense, Jake's got the Lions going against Denver. Daniel's got the Vikings going against San Diego. Both of them at home. This is kind of a toss-up again. I expect Peyton to turn the ball over at least once, maybe twice. And I don't know. I don't know who to give the edge to. I guess if you held a gun to my head, it would be the Lions against Denver, just because I think Peyton is losing it. Kicker, again, don't care. I'm going against the grain. ESPN projects Jake to win. I'm going with Daniel Carter. I expect both of these teams to be 2-1 by next week. All right. And our last matchup, Mooka Mad Boys for Daniel Printz and the Mouth Sweats by Craig Land. Daniel Printz hoping to rebound from last week's pitiful showing. I beat him 151 to 60 something. Craig Land hoping to get on the board here. So at quarterback, Daniel's got Cam Newton going against New Orleans. Craig's got Ryan Tannehill. I like Newton here. New Orleans has been terrible. Newton's been running the ball a little better. Tannehill, his injury probably won't. I mean, he wasn't mobile in the first place, but he's going against a stout Buffalo defense, and Miami's just going to be Miami. They just always seem to poop the bed. Running backs, Daniel's got Justin Forsett and Trey Mason. Craig's got C.J. Anderson and Carlos Hyde. Daniel's obviously looking for Eddie Lacy to get back healthy. If he does, I like his running backs. If Lacy plays, I like his running backs more. If he does not, I like Craig's more. It looks like Carlos Hyde will play, and he seems to be a monster. C.J. Anderson, I picked him up in one of my leagues, first round, and promptly traded him. I'm selling him at pretty much anything I can get at this point. I think he's going to have a bad year. Denver's offensive line just looks bad. Um, he's getting a lot of attention in the box because Peyton can't throw it. Ronnie Hillman's playing better than him. Um, Kind of a toss-up if Lacey doesn't play because I don't really trust Trey Mason either, especially if Gurley's going to play. But yeah, if Lacey plays, I like Daniels better. Yeah. Um, Wide receivers, Daniels got Amari Cooper, Roll Tide, and Brandon Coleman. Craig's got Randall Cobb and Kendall Wright. I like Craig's here. Um, I think Amari Cooper is going to be a future Pro Bowler and Hall of Fame type wide receiver. I think he's incredible if he stays healthy. But Randall Cobb is in a proven high volume passing offense, one of the best quarterbacks ever. Um, and I trust Kendall Wright, strangely, more than Brandon Coleman. I just don't know what to think about New Orleans' offense right now, especially with Breeze hurt. Um, as I said earlier, I think Indy and Tennessee will be a shootout, so I think Kendall Wright will have a lot of opportunities there. And playing with a better quarterback in Marcus Mariota. Um, Tight ends, Daniel's got Richard Rodgers, a sneaky play. Tight end from Green Bay who found the end zone and got a 2-point conversion last week. Going against Kyle Rudolph for Craig. It's more of maybe a little more consistent. He seems to get a lot more passes between the 20s. But I don't know how much he's going to score. Whereas Richard Rodgers is more of a touchdown dependent kind of guy. Definitely not fast. Can't really get separation, just kind of boxes out people in the end zone. If I had the two, I'd go with Rudolph just because of the consistency. But Rodgers has a good chance to find the end zone. Flex position is interesting as well. Daniel's got Mike Evans, who looks to build off of his pitiful last week performance of 0 points. Danny Woodhead, currently the 6th ranked running back in the league, catching a lot of passes as usual, but strangely seeing goal line touches more than Melvin Gordon. I like Mike Evans here. I think he's getting healthier. Jameis has to look his way. Woodhead, I think, is going to come back to earth. He is definitely not the 6th best running back in the league. I just don't think that's sustainable. Defense, we have the same game, Eagles-Jets. Daniel has the Eagles defense. Craig's got the Jets defense. I think the Jets defense is better, and Philly needs to, until Philly turns it around on offense, I think the Jets will stuff them, especially if DeMarco Murray doesn't play. Kickers, don't care. If Lacey plays, I like Daniel to win if he's healthy, and he seems to have avoided a high ankle sprain, so that's good for his chances. But if he doesn't, I probably like Craig to get on the board here. So, just to recap, I'm picking myself over Paul Anderson, Neil in a nail biter over Mr. Ben, David Printz over Matt Freeman, Steve Carter over Darlene, Joe Printz over Steve Freeman, Daniel Carter over Jake Freeman, and depending on Eddie Lacy, if Lacy plays, Daniel Printz. If he doesn't, Craig. I'm going Craig. All right, so good luck, and I will see you next week.